regular meeting of the agency for today, September 3rd, 2025. Lisa, if you could please call the roll. We have two folks on the agency that are excused. That's Commissioner Bahave and Commissioner Munson.
Daniel Bedecker.
Here.
Brian Black.
Here.
Jim Connors.
Here.
Matthew Connors.
Here.
Nick Ritchie. Julie Valvo.
Here.
Buddy Field.
Here.
Raymond Gradwell.
Here.
Brendan Magnan.
Present. Thank you. Let's see. Commissioner Gradwell and Commissioner Field, can you please be the voting alternates this evening?
Yes. Yes. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Again, Brendan Magnan, Chair of the Milford Inlands Wetlands Agency. There's a few statutory requirements I'm going to go through to set the stage for tonight's meeting. As a reminder, as we continue to host meetings, remote meetings, please be sure to mute yourself until recognized by me as the chair. Once recognized, please state your name and address if you're not a member of the agency before speaking for the first time, so we have your name and information for the record. Keep in mind, under the Freedom of Information Act and Governor Lamont's executive orders, this meeting is being broadcast, is being recorded, and will be made available on the City of Milford website and is being broadcast on YouTube as we speak. A couple of reminders. We are here to regulate the wetlands, brooks, rivers, flooding, and wetland habitat. Zoning issues are not under our purview. I must insist and remind everybody that as a wetlands agency, we are here to evaluate applications solely on the basis of their potential impact to the wetlands and watercourses as defined under state law. So please, while we welcome participation, while we welcome public comment in the right sections, we will respectfully ask that all remarks are focused purely on the wetlands related considerations. Testimony concerning general desirability of an application or undesirability of a proposed development, traffic density, traffic regulations are outside of our legal jurisdiction, and I, as your chair, will ensure that we are sticking to the remarks relative to wetlands, and I would encourage everyone to be very specific with your concerns in regards to the wetlands. As of this evening, we are now starting the second public hearing on a particular matter that we're going to be hearing. Before we commence with the Pledge of Allegiance and the rest of the items, it's my expectation that we will hear a number of presenters this evening. We'll entertain a lot of information. We'll be hearing from the public who did not have an opportunity to speak before this meeting. And I'm expecting that this meeting will be concluded by 10 p.m. Do I have a motion from the agency to have a 2/3 vote at 9:45 as to whether or not the meeting will extend past 10 p.m.?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Bravo. Thank you. Who was the second?
I was.
Jim Connors. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. Lisa, roll call vote, please.
Daniel Bedecker.
Aye.
Brian Black.
Aye.
Jim Connors. Jim.
Aye. Aye.
Matthew Connors.
Aye.
Julie Valvo.
Aye.
Buddy Field.
Aye.
Raymond Gradwell.
Aye.
Brendan Magnan.
Aye. Thank you. The motion carries. At this time, I invite everyone to stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. If Mary Rose, you could please share the flag on the screen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
Liberty and justice
for all. Thank you, everyone. Everyone can go back on mute until recognized. As I mentioned, this is a continuation of the public hearing for IW 250036, that's 34 Buick Avenue, for a permit to construct a 53-unit 830G development with construction, grading, stormwater and associated road improvements within 100 feet of a wetland and watercourse in the Indian River watershed. Mary Rose, do you want to elaborate on the matter before us?
Give me 1 second. Let me just let this person in. Thank you. This is a proposal by 34 Buick LLC for a 53-unit building under Connecticut General Statute 830G with construction grading and stormwater within 100 feet of a wetland and watercourse in the Indian River watershed. There are 0.02 acres of wetlands on the southern portion of the site along Stubby Plain Brook. Closest point of the proposed improvements to wetlands on the property is 82 feet to the driveway entrance. Wetlands are also located to the south on the site on the Par 4 property and are within 4 feet of the proposed road improvements on Buick Avenue. The city engineer has received the peer reviews and will review them and have any questions to the applicants by the next meeting. He had previously reviewed it and had asked for a few revisions and was talked to Mr. Weiwei about that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mary Rose. I believe it's also true that the file contents and certified mailings are on file. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, yes. Just to inform everyone, the following information is available on the link on the document link on the agenda. Our file contents list, the certificate of mailing, application and supporting documents, the peer review reports and the documentation, and also the professional qualifications of the consultants involved with the project.
Great, thanks, Mary Rose. As we announced when we continued the hearing, this extension was necessary to review additional information. I'd like to thank everybody again for coming to the public hearing and have an interest in the process. Please note, as I mentioned earlier, this is a proceeding, a formal proceeding, and we have rules that we will follow. As a continuation of the public hearing opened on July 16th, 2025, we will open up with public speaking for and against for those who have not had an opportunity to speak. As a reminder, this is not a back and forth discussion. For anyone that has either signed up with the office or would like to raise their hand now to be recognized in a moment, you are entitled to raise your wetlands related concerns. Just as a reminder, we as the agency will deliberate based on our training. With that in mind, I would like to open it up to those who are wishing to speak, as I mentioned, who haven't had the opportunity to speak and would like to present new information.
Yeah,
go ahead, Mary.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, Attorney Joel Green had asked to speak first and also has with him Stephen Trinkus and Bill Kenny, an engineer and professional wetland scientist, to speak on his behalf.
Great. And actually, before I open it up for Mr. Green to start, I would like to just acknowledge a couple of other bits of information as chair. So as everyone may have followed along here, we as the agency engaged Landtech as our independent third-party reviewer. We evaluated their proposal. They have provided us a report, and that report dated August 27th closely aligns with the scope and the proposal that we sought to seek, for them, which is really focused on the biodiversity impacts and a host of other concerns that were identified during the public testimony on July 16th. So I would just like to comment that we'll certainly have opportunity to hear from Landtech, and the applicant will have already responded and received the Landtech report. But I would just like to say that the Landtech team did a great job in providing a rigorous-based review with a lot of information that needs to be addressed. And I would say that as a general rule, Mr. Trinkus's review was also submitted, and there's a lot of synergy between those two reviews in terms of asking clarifying questions. And so I think it's really important to understand and to give credit to those experts for their domain expertise. So at this time, I'd like to hand it over to Attorney Joel Green. And Mr. Green, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board and staff. My name is Joel Green, and I practice law in Bridgeport, the law offices of Green and Gross. It's my pleasure to appear before the board this evening on behalf of Parbrook LLC, the owner of the abutting property at 158 Cherry Street, and Spinnaker Brook II LLC, the owner of the property at 122 Cherry Street, in opposition to this application filed by 34 Buick Avenue LLC and its consultant seeking this wetland permit. Initially, I want to thank my client, and I would like to thank the board and the agency and staff for the courtesy that you've extended to me and to my client and our consultants for our presentation. And we really greatly appreciate the cooperation and the courtesy on scheduling. I also really have to comment on the depth and quality of the public comment that I've heard over the course of the public hearing. And as I know you recognize, there's just been a tremendous amount of detail and a lot of thought by the public that's gone into this application. And I think that it will help the commission in evaluating and ruling on the application. It is our position that the application is defective, incomplete, and non-compliant with your inland wetlands regulations, and we will be presenting on that this evening and to assist in our review and to ensure that the agency is provided with a complete and technically sound assessment of the application and substantial evidence as the law requires. My clients have retained two consultants. First of all, Stephen Trinkus of Trinkus Engineering, who is a licensed professional engineer with extensive experience in stormwater management and low impact development. And he has, Mr. Trinkus has evaluated the proposed stormwater systems and has reviewed the treatment design and assessed compliance with the deep stormwater quality manual. I would just note for the record that Mr. Trinkus's professional resume has been provided in the record, and so I won't spend a lot of time on that this evening. My clients also retained Andrew DeLatch and Bill Kenny of William Kenny Associates, and Mr. DeLatch is a consulting ecologist with expertise in wetland ecology, habitat assessment, and environmental permitting, and he has provided an ecological review of the site, identified potential impacts to Stubby Plain Brook, and evaluated the absence of evidence that is required. And so the findings of these experts form the technical foundation for our objections and support the conclusions that I'll present to the commission shortly. I would like to first call upon Mr. Trinkus to review his review and his findings and conclusions on the application. I should note that we've had a bit of a scheduling problem, so Mr. Trinkus is appearing really remotely from Hamden Town Hall, where he's participating in another application this evening, but we've managed to arrange for him to appear right now. So I would call on Mr. Trinkus right now. Steve, are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I actually, good evening. Steve Trinkus for the record. I'm a professional engineer from Southbury. I apologize for a little bit of echo. I'm in the hall at Hamden Town Hall. before the other meeting. At Joel's request, I reviewed the application, submitted a letter, and I will go through the high points of it. The applicant is proposing a permeable paver system on multiple layers of crushed stone to handle the runoff. The focus of the review is really on water quality and runoff volumes. I agree with many of Land Tech's comments. I only saw those about an hour ago. But the main concern is simple layers of gravel do not provide treatment in the form of reducing non-point source pollutant loads, metals, hydrocarbons, nutrients. Gravel is an inert system, and where pollutant renovation would occur would be via infiltration into the underlying soil. But as Land Tech pointed out, and I went through each of the treatment systems, the applicant did do some test holes, but they were not on the plans. But in many cases, there was a shallow depth to modeling. And without knowing where the test pits were and the elevations, it's hard to completely ascertain the separation between the bottom of the stone layer and seasonal groundwater. The 24 DEP stormwater manual requires a 3-foot separation. Land Tech did note in several areas that it might only be less than a foot of separation. So that's a problem. You're not going to get the treatment. The other major issue is when you look at the cross section of the permeable pavement system, the various stone layers are all parallel to the ground surface, which means that each stone layer is on a slight slope. When the applicant modeled this system hydrologically, they took the storage volume as if each layer of gravel was dead level. So you would have a surface area times a height. But when it's on an incline, and even though it's maybe a 2 or 3% incline, the volume is not done that way. It would actually be very small on the low end. You would have like a little triangle, and as you go up, the triangle basically gets a little bit larger. So the whole modeling analysis is simply not valid because the volumes being used in it are not correct based on the cross section of the plan. Land Tech, Rob Pryor's comment seemed to suggest that maybe the applicant was looking to have the layers level, but the cross section that I just looked at of the revised plans still has it on a slope. So, you're not going to get the volume reduction that the applicant is claiming. There is no water quality treatment. The roof runoff is being directed into these stone layers. And the problem with that is large commercial buildings are not clean from a roof standpoint. Based on literature reviews, 40% of our nutrient loads, nitrogen, phosphorus, come via atmospheric deposition. So, what's happening right now, or on a rainy day, the stuff lands on impervious roofs, and when it rains, it gets washed off. So 40% of our nutrient loads are coming from that. That's why roof runoff from commercial buildings is not considered clean. A single-family residential house, which has a gable roof or mansard roof, a very steep sloping roof, the stuff doesn't accumulate because it's a sloped surface, and if there's a slight breeze, the breeze will basically blow what is more or less dust, off the roof. But that does not happen on flat commercial roofs. So the roof runoff in this case needs to be treated. This system does not provide treatment. It maybe provides some storage, but then it will ultimately be discharged to the wetlands and water course across the street at 122. And you're going to have increased pollutant loads, and nitrogen and phosphorus are limiting factors. Phosphorus is limiting in freshwater systems, but nitrogen is a limiting factor in tidal systems. And ultimately, this water course gets to a tidal environment. So it's important that you address these nutrient loads. Metals and hydrocarbons, which are associated with the movement of vehicles in and out, or can be very toxic at low concentrations to a lot of the benthic organisms that live in the bottom of a typical stream system. And I'm sure Bill Kenny's office will weigh in on that particular point. So I went through each of the systems and gave you I guess a chapter and verse on the shortcomings of each one of the 5 permeable paver cells. There's also claims of void space. They're claiming 11% void space within the pea gravel there between the paver stones. That's really very, very generous. It should be about 2 or 3%. The gaps between the pavers are about a ½ inch that you're filling in with a 3/8 stone. So there's not very much, open space in between those. Some of the infiltration testing, in one of the test pits, they had a rate of 39+ inches per hour, which is about almost 80 feet per day. And that is really wildly excessive for what is an urbanized soil. This is not a virgin site. This is a previously developed site. A couple of the other infiltration tests stayed the same rate from the start to the finish. I've done these double ring tests for the past 15 years, and the rate always slows down over time, similar to a perk test, but it never starts at one rate and continues at that rate from start to finish. Because as the ground gets saturated, you do get to what we call an equilibrium, where again, the rate begins to stabilize. It does start out fast, but then it, slows down. I also agree with Land Tech about the swale above the retaining wall. It's a permanent, if it is a permanent swale, it's got to be designed according to the stormwater quality manual, which we have not seen the calculations for that. You have this large retaining wall also in the northwest corner of the site, but it's holding back the slope above it, but there's no provisions for handling the groundwater. So if there's no way for the water uphill of it to get through, it will saturate the soil on the uphill side of the wall and ultimately cause a potential failure of the modular block wall if that's what the applicant is using. I think as Land Tech also pointed out, you have the area of the permeable pavers is the entire parking lot. And, as the DEP manual and general low impact development strategies, when you're using an area for, infiltration, you cannot have traffic going back and forth over it. Even if you put fill material over it, concrete trucks and dump trucks that are loaded are 75 to 80,000 pounds. And with limited footprints on, the tires, you will compact those soils. And if you compact the soils, you basically kiss any infiltration goodbye. And that's a very valid concern that Land Tech raised, which I also support, because if you cannot protect this area from the movement of vehicles, you're going to compromise the functionality of the stormwater management system as far as that goes. The applicant's proposal between each of the pavement cells has a 30 mil liner, basically kind of creating what we term as a speed bump, so the water doesn't run from the top of the hill all the way to the bottom. However, when we do these speed bumps, we do not use a 30 mil liner, which is an impermeable liner. We use a different type of liner for that. And I think if a 30 mil liner is used, which is impermeable, you can get water building up on the uphill side of that and perhaps then going over it to the next cell, which kind of voids the whole intent of the design. But the main focus is, it hasn't been demonstrated that there will be reductions in runoff volume. Increased runoff volumes when they go into a receiving stream are responsible for changing the stream channel morphology, simply because the stream, when it rains a certain amount of water, if it's say 1 inch of rain in 24 hours, the stream will flow at a certain depth for a certain period of time. But when you increase the volume for that storm going into the stream, which in this case will be substantial as they're almost have 100% increase of impervious cover, now the stream will flow at that nominal height for a much longer period of time. And the stream basically doesn't like that. So the only thing the stream can do is erode the channel banks to get back to an equilibrium. Well, the eroded material moves downstream in the stream flow and ultimately does wind up getting deposited, downstream where either the stream, there's a pool, or whether you hit a small pond, any place where the velocities settle out. And again, as I pointed out, it hasn't been demonstrated that you are going to have a reduction in the non-point source pollutant loads, which will affect the water quality within the receiving stream and wetlands. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. If I could, Mr. Chair, if I could just pose a question of Mr. Trinkus, if that's okay.
Yeah, certainly, Mr.
Thank you. Mr. Trinkus, at my request, did you review the site plan with respect to any development, use, or impact of the abutting property at 122 Cherry Street?
Yes, I looked at that.
And did you find that any activities or any impacts will occur on 122 Cherry Street?
Yes, there is a drainage manhole and piping from the site at 34 Buick going through the 122 property to discharge into the stream.
And is that a new condition?
It's on the current set of plans. It's a new pipe being proposed. It's not an existing pipe.
Okay. I have nothing further of Mr. Trinkus. I don't know if, Mr. Chairman, if the board has questions for him.
We will ask questions later in the process. Thank you, Attorney Green.
So unfortunately, Mr. Trinkus is going to have to leave us to present on this matter in Hamden. So I'm not sure what the chair contemplates.
That's fine. What we contemplate is that there's a host of questions that your expert has posed, as did our independent expert. And I expect the applicant has the onus of responsibility to address each and every one of those.
Okay.
I don't expect those to be resolved over conversation this evening. I expect our city engineer will also review both independent third-party reviews. And so the applicant has already acknowledged that they have started to review these concerns and will be presenting their position on it later in the hearing. But I expect that they will need additional time. Hence the earlier sentiment that we don't expect this meeting to go on until midnight, like the last public hearing.
All right. So with that, can I excuse Mr. Trinkus then for this evening?
Certainly.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Chairman.
you.
Thank you for your expert testimony, Mr. Trinkus.
I would next like to call on Andrew Delatch from William Kenny Associates. Andrew, are you present?
Yep, I'm here.
Andrew, if you could just briefly, I misspoke. I had submitted a resume for Mr. Kenny. If you could just briefly describe your education, training, and experience for the record and for the benefit of the board and the public, please.
Certainly. I have a degree in botany from Miami University. I have been working with Bill Kenny for about 2 years, completing a variety of wetland impact assessments as they relate to a variety of developments all across Connecticut. We regularly perform wildlife surveys. We perform vegetation surveys and complete permit applications at the local, state, and federal level related to a variety of developments. And Bill Kenny and myself have completed a review of the proposed multi-unit development at 34 Buick Avenue and its potential to adversely affect inland wetlands and watercourses. And based upon our review, we find that the project will result in adverse impacts to Stubby Plain Brook in both the short term and the long term. And we find that impacts will result from the construction of the stormwater management system's outlet control structure, from the absence of appropriate stormwater treatment associated with the addition of impervious surfaces, and inadequate soil erosion and sediment control measures. And to get into that a bit, related to the stormwater management system's outlet control structure, we find that short-term direct adverse impacts will occur to Stubby Plain Brook. The control structure is proposed in the location of the existing head wall, which is just south of Buick Avenue and associated with the existing culvert that runs beneath Buick Ave. Features related to that outlet appear to be cited so that they'll be installed immediately in or adjacent to the brook. However, the project did not seem to identify the exact location nor the size of the control structure, and it appeared the site plans lacked the detail related to the structure as well. Likewise, it was unclear from the sediment and erosion control plans included within the application how adverse impacts will be avoided during the construction of the actual outlet control structure. If it will be performed during a low flow time of year when the brook is at its lowest. It was also unclear if the head wall would be required to be built to accommodate, a new head wall would be required to be built to accommodate the installation, or if it was just going to be installed within the existing head wall and how that process would be conducted. And additionally, during our review, since this is a new pipe leading from 34 Buick to the existing head wall, we did question the lack of notation related to required tree removal in that area, and how potentially shading and light might affect the brook in that location. So yeah, that's how we see that direct impacts will occur through the installation of the stormwater outlet control structure. And to move on, we also find that in the short term, wetlands and watercourses can be indirectly impacted from sediment-laden water runoff from the proposed impervious surfaces. And according to the report prepared by reviewing engineer Stephen Trinkus, the soil erosion and sediment control measures are not properly depicted within the plans, and the project is thus not in compliance with the CTD 2024 guidelines for soil erosion and sediment control. And based on that alone, the potential for indirect adverse impacts in the short term are tremendously increased. But to expand on that, with the expansion of Buick Avenue, there's a very high potential for indirect adverse impacts to Stubby Plain Brook, and that's particularly in the southeastern work area. And that's where the adjacent surface grade quickly drops from Buick Avenue to the lower wetland system that I believe is on 122 Cherry Street before it exits beneath Cherry Street. And due to the constraints from the property boundaries and the watercourse and those associated wetlands, it's unclear if with that steep drop, if the space allots for the refinement of erosion and sediment control measures, as the access road will be expanding very close to where that grade change is located. And it's unclear if sediment and erosion control measures shown in the current plans provide adequate protection to the brook during construction. And in the long term, wetlands and watercourses can be indirectly adversely impacted from stormwater runoff that flows from buildings, pavements, and vegetated surfaces. And stormwater derived pollutants may be derived from a variety of potential components. This could be de-icing constituents, thermal impacts from impervious surface runoff, hydrocarbons, synthetic chemicals, nutrient loads, as Stephen had gotten into a little bit. And according to the project engineer, impervious surface will increase at the site by about 93.4%, so nearly 100% increase. And according to the report prepared by Stephen Trinkus, the proposed stormwater management system is not in compliance with the CTD 2024 Stormwater Quality Manual. As such, long-term indirect impacts will result from the proposed impervious surfaces. But to expand upon that a little bit more, during our review, it was noted that no apparent best management practices are proposed to treat the additional impervious surfaces resulting from the Buick Ave expansion. So this is not on 34 Buick Ave itself, but with the expansion of the roadway, as well as from the proposed new driveway, which is located on 34 Buick Ave and associated with the existing dwelling. So with the absence of stormwater treatment measures, the untreated runoff will adversely impact the brook. They could infect organisms living within the brook, microorganisms which inhabit it as well, and thus downstream systems as well. So to summarize, the project seems to neglect to take into account direct impacts associated with the stormwater management outlet structure. It lacks crucial information related to its construction. It neglects to provide adequate stormwater treatment associated with the increase in impervious surfaces. And according to Stephen's review, fails to comply with both the CTD 2024 guidelines for soil erosion and sediment control, as well as fails to comply with the stormwater quality manual put out by CTD. And based on that, we find that this project will adversely impact Stubby Plain Brook, both directly and indirectly during and following construction. So thank you, and I'll turn it back over to Attorney Green.
And Mr. Delatch, just more directly, will the activities also directly impact the watercourse and wetlands on the property at 122 Cherry Street.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I don't know if the agency has any questions for Mr. Delatch at this moment.
The only question, perhaps to Mr. Delatch or to yourself is, and actually through Mary Rose, is do we have the report from William Kenny Associates that was referenced by Attorney Green? I don't see that in the file contents.
It is in the documents section, and I believe it's pages 5 through 9 in the documents section that is online.
Yeah, and thanks for that, Attorney Green. I don't see in the quick reference links Mr. Deletch's credentials either. So that could be something, Mary Rose, that we need to post if you do have that. I'm not seeing that.
We will provide that, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Sure. So with that, can Mr. Delatch similarly be excused?
Only just to clarify, Mary Rose, do we have a report from William Kenny Associates authored by Mr. Delatch?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, we have a report from William Kenny Associates received on 8/20, I think 8, from William Kenny and Andrew Delatch.
Okay,
and it is in the documents.
Thank you. So yes, Mr. Green, that's fine. We can ask questions following this hearing. Obviously, I haven't seen the report.
Yes, of course.
Thank you.
All right. So to summarize on the reports and just to do a sort of brief higher level summary, it's our position that the defects and incompleteness in the application include inadequate stormwater management, and that the applicant fails to comply with the stormwater quality manual. The proposed stormwater system does not provide effective treatment for runoff from impervious surfaces, which once again will increase by 93.4%. It lacks measures to reduce non-point source pollutants such as suspended solids, phosphorus, nitrogen, hydrocarbons, and metals, and it poses, once again, a direct threat to water quality in Stubby Plain Brook. There's non-compliance with the soil erosion and sediment control guidelines in that the erosion and sediment control plan fails to comply with the guidelines, and those missing details include filter locations, outlet protection, and construction phasing. And that omission creates a high risk of sediment-laden runoff, degrading the wetlands and watercourses during construction. And your regulations in section 7.5E require detailed erosion and sedimentation controls. There's a failure to address increased impervious surfaces, and once again, the project will expand impervious surfaces dramatically through building footprint, roadway expansion, and new driveways. And there are not adequate stormwater management or treatment measures provided for those increased impervious surfaces. And your regulation 7.5E requires the inclusion of management practices that prevent or minimize pollution. Next, there's a lack of outlet protection details. There's no specific plans or engineering details provided for the outlet protection structures at the discharge point into Stubby Plain Brook. And once again, the absence of these details prevents meaningful evaluation of direct wetland impacts. And 7.5G of your regulations, there's a requirement for site plan showing existing proposed conditions in relation to wetlands and watercourses. It is our the next missing element would be inadequate soil testing and infiltration analysis. Infiltration tests were not conducted at the required depths and are inconsistent with the deep standards. Soil test locations are missing from the site plans, and without that data, the proposed stormwater system cannot be shown to function as intended. Section 10.2A requires the evaluation of environmental impacts and that can't be done without that information. The site plans are once again incomplete and inaccurate. Flood zones are incorrectly identified. The plan omits design details for essential components such as grass swales and retaining walls. And once again, these omissions prevent a full assessment. So feasible and prudent alternatives. The applicant has not provided a comprehensive alternatives analysis. Now, I recognize that in referring this matter for a public hearing, the commission voted on the application and finding that there was significant public interest in the application, which is obviously proven to be really true. And it was not based on initially significant impacts. And I recognize that that finding was not made, but certainly section 10.2 of your regulations in assessing an application, one of the considerations for the commission is the applicant's purpose for and any feasible and prudent alternatives to the proposed regulated activity, which alternatives would cause less or no environmental impact to wetlands or watercourses. This is something that we think that certainly the applicant could have assisted the commission in doing, especially where it's been demonstrated that there will be these impacts. Two other comments I'd like to just touch on are some of the applicant's submissions, such as documentation on the permeable pavement system that are commercial marketing documents by the manufacturer, I think should be found to be less compelling to the agency because obviously, you know, they're commercial marketing activities. They are not scientific peer reviews of documents. And I guess an issue that I'm going to put out there right now is, and I urge the commission to seek an opinion from the town engineer, is that there are activities and proposed impacts that are proposed on my client's property, on one of the properties, 122 Cherry Street. And I had asked Mr. Trinkus about that specifically. And that sort of leads into, I would just like to briefly address noncompliance with specific inland wetland regulations. And I want to emphasize that we're in sort of a different territory here, and it's refreshing for me because I've been spending quite a bit of time before planning and zoning commissions on 8-30G applications lately. And I know, as this commission is aware, the burden in those applications is shifted to the commission so that frequently we are, I find myself representing neighborhood groups who are concerned with 8-30G applications in the zoning context. And in this case, however, the burden is on the applicant in this matter before this agency. And the applicant failed in its burden in that your regulations specifically require under application materials, and I'll just quote directly from section 7.5B, the owner's name, address, and telephone number, and written consent if the applicant is not the owner of the property involved in the application. And in this case, once again, I urge you to seek an opinion from your town engineer, but we think that it's obvious that there are direct impacts, but more significantly, there is an outlet and work performed on that property. So I just want to put that out front and suggest that is a critical element that is missing from the application. The other sections just the laundry list would be section 7.5E and 7.5G, which again deal with the application, which are application requirements dealing with lack of erosion controls, missing outlet protection details, and accurate site plans. Section 10.2A and D, which we would suggest that the applicant did not provide a basis upon which the commission could make the findings required in 10.2A and 10.2D. And 10.2A, as you're familiar, deals with a finding on the environmental impact of the proposed regulated activity on wetlands or watercourses. And as we've demonstrated, the agency must take that into consideration, but the applicant has not provided the information that would enable the agency to do that. 10.2D deals with irreversible and irretrievable loss of wetland or watercourse resources, which would be caused by the proposed regulated activity. Once again, the applicant failed to satisfy or provide sufficient information from which the agency can make a finding that would not occur. And to the contrary, there are immediate and long-term impacts, as the William Kenny report demonstrates. Once again, 10.2F deals with impacts of the proposed regulated activity on wetlands or watercourses outside of the area for which the activity is proposed. In their report, William Kenny Associates establishes that there will be downstream effects associated with this application. And so once again, the applicant has failed to meet its burden. And once again, clearly the burden of proof, the burden of proving that the application satisfy your regulations rests on the applicant. So overall, the potential negative impacts are water quality degradation from, once again, stormwater flow directly into the watercourse, Stubby Plain Brook, flooding and erosion risks from increased impervious coverage, which will raise runoff volumes and velocities, loss of habitat, removal of mature trees and shading along Stubby Plain Brook will disrupt the ecological balance, and construction impacts, including sediment-laden stormwater, which will degrade wetlands and watercourses during site preparation based upon the plan as it's presently presented. So on that basis, it would be our position that as the Inland Wetlands Agency, you're vested with the authority to evaluate and assess the application, to assess the plans submitted by the applicant. And in this instance, based upon the reports by the consultants that we've provided, based upon the report by peer reviewers that have been retained by the agency, the application simply does not meet the standards in your regulations. And on that basis, my clients urge the agency to deny the application. I certainly want to thank you once again for your courtesy, for your patience, and for hearing us this evening. I don't know if you have questions for me at this juncture.
Thanks, Attorney Green. I believe we are well suited to make a ruling on this at the appropriate time. Now is not the time. So we are certainly well educated on the statutes.
Sure.
At this time, if you have nothing further specific to this application that you need to call attention to the record, I will thank you. I will mention that the documents does include Mr. Kenny's. It was just an oversight on my part. So of course we will review that in more detail as it was presented. So thank you for your testimony. At this time, I'd like to move on to call for any persons of the public that are either in favor or against this application that have not spoken. So again, I'm pleading with you, only speak to new information. If you haven't had an opportunity to testify, just understand this agency will have its opportunity to deliberate. But as per our process, we're opening up to the public initially. So, Mary Rose, do you have anybody on the list?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, just a reminder, this is for folks who did not speak on June 16th. And we've got that list here, but I do not see any.
July 16th, I'm sorry.
July 16th, I apologize. I do not see any hands up at this time.
Great. Okay. At this time, I'm going to move on to invite the applicant team to respond to the testimony that we've heard this evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the agency. For the record, my name is Kevin Kersaden. My office is at 243 Broad Street here in Milford. With me this evening is professional engineer Bob Weway, landscape architect and wetland scientist Matthew Pop. We also have a gentleman, Mr. Kevin Early, who will be giving a presentation on the permeable pavers. I do want to point out for the record, last week, I think it was, I submitted all of the applicant teams' CVs and resumes, and the design experts have on average about 40 plus years of experience. Much of the work done here in the Milford Orange area. The applicant team is a Milford team. The applicant is from Milford, and as am I. And all of the resumes are on file for the board, for the agency to take a look at. I was not going to touch on any legal points, but I think since it was brought up by Attorney Green about the work done on the 122 Cherry Street, I will inform the agency that I did discuss that with the city engineer prior to filing the application, and I also discussed that with the city attorney. And that area is a kind of a pizza-shaped triangular area that abuts the 34 Buick and 122 Cherry Street, and there's an easement for right-of-way purposes that the city owns for that work that's being done. So that legal issue was decided with the city attorney's office and input from the city engineer already. We'll also point out that the standard city right-of-way is 50 feet wide, and the city has rights to extend out the roadway to 50 feet if they would like to, if necessary for any projects. I'll be followed. I think that Mr. Weway will speak at the end. And unless, Bob, you have anything you want to say before I turn it over to Mr. Early, who's going to give a brief presentation on the pavers based on a lot of questions that were from the July 16th meeting. And Mr. Early?
Mr. Kersaden, before you hand off to your team, I just have a kind of an expectation question for you.
Yes.
There were 2 independent reviews submitted. I believe you've received those. You
Correct.
understand that the city engineer will also review those. Do you have an expectation as to when you would be in a position to respond to those in a written format?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. We made an effort to try to do that this week. Unfortunately, with the long weekend and getting some of the documents on the 27th or 28th, we weren't able to. So I defer to Bob Weway on that, but we were thinking that we would grant the agency an extension of time and probably go to the October 1st meeting and be able to present it or provide the information in a timely fashion before that meeting so that everyone will have an opportunity to review it and comment on it. But I would defer to Bob Weway, the project engineer, if that's time frame.
Yeah, and if I could weigh in before you invite Mr. Weway, I think from an agency perspective, it would be a better use of our time to receive a written response to each of the concerns and have our time to be able to review it so that we can prepare questions,
Yes.
as opposed to even discussing those matters tonight. Certainly, you have the prerogative to address any and all concerns before us. I would just like to be efficient and effective in the way we're communicating. So that would be-
Understood. We were not planning on, I guess, piecemealing the response tonight in a verbal or oral format. We would like to do a comprehensive written response to each point that has been brought up. So I think we're in alignment with your wishes, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much for that,
Yeah.
Mr.
Thank you. And so I would like to, but we would like to have because there was a lot of questions about the permeable pavers, we'd like to have Mr. Early give his presentation. Mr. Early, thank you.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Chair, can I share my screen to share my slides? I know
Just
you've
give
been
me
provided.
1 second. There you go. You should be able to do that now, Mr. Early.
Okay, so let's see.
Could you just please identify yourself for the record?
Yes, I'm Kevin Early. I live in Collegeville, Pennsylvania, and I am a licensed professional geologist with over 25 years experience in the industry. Let me just share the screen here. I'm hitting share. Are you seeing anything?
It says double click. We're seeing your full screen.
Yeah, we see the PowerPoint now.
Okay,
Now
there you go.
That's maximized. Yeah,
Is it maximized?
it is.
Okay, good. That means it's on the right screen. So hello, everybody. I'm Kevin Early. I'm the a technical service support person for Oldcastle, a manufacturer of permeable pavements. Like I said, I'm a licensed geologist. I've been in the concrete paving industry for over 25 years. My experience with the industry involves work with the American Society of Civil Engineers in creating standards. You have a copy of my my resume. And I was asked by the applicant to just give a short presentation on how permeable pavers work. This is a slide deck that will explain how the system works and infiltrates stormwater as a green stormwater infrastructure. And I've had the fortune of seeing permeable pavements throughout North America over the last decades, and there are hundreds of millions of square feet used around the country, primarily as a solution for addressing stormwater control, for addressing flood control, and for addressing water quality issues. And so it's become a very effective, recognized stormwater control measure. Every state in New England recognizes permeable pavers as a best management practice, as a green stormwater infrastructure, including Connecticut. And what we've seen is that it's very well established in parking lots. It seems to be the ideal application. Projects, whether it's residential or commercial, that have pavement can utilize pavement in a way that provides that surface, but also infiltrates the stormwater in a nature-based solution. A lot of people don't realize it, but permeable pavers recognized by the engineering industry, by the American Society of Testing Materials as a nature-based solution because of the way rainwater infiltrates these surfaces. And so what we have are pavers in this particular parking lot here on the East Coast that have joints. And those joints, as previously referenced, 11% surface open area, basically eliminate stormwater runoff because the aggregates in the joints and the underlying materials are highly permeable. And so I hope to explain that to you. But here's a picture of a permeable pavement municipal parking lot in a heavy rainstorm event. And so it is basically drinking the water into the reservoir. So well established, and then within the stormwater quality manual in Connecticut, I mean, obviously everybody recognizes that it is an infiltration BMP, right out of table 8-1, and it is recognized for not only retention, but water quality treatment. In fact, in a lot of states in the United States, it gives presumptive credits because it's well recognized that when we run rainwater through aggregate, we are getting by default filtering and removal of pollutants. So these typical assemblies involve a concrete paver that's typically 3 1/8 inch thick, which is what the applicant has proposed, with these permeable joints filled with an aggregate, and they sit on a bedding layer that is chip gravel, and it's highly permeable material. It's available at all quarries throughout New England, and it sits on this layering of open graded aggregate. And I'd like to explain what open graded aggregate is, but this is the industry minimum cross section, and you can see that the applicant has more than the minimum subbase thickness required based on site specific design. Another view of this in section is the water is going through the joints. It does not go through the paver. The paver is a high strength concrete product that has enlarged spacer bars. So it's sized for a very specific aggregate. You can see on the right-hand side, this is that 11% opening area. It's not an incorrect calculation. It's a very easy calculation on an AutoCAD that calculates the surface area, and it takes this area. This area is, it's given it's 11% of the total area that's paved. So what are the aggregates? They're called open graded aggregates. And in the past, when you constructed any parking lot or roadway, you used dense graded aggregates, the traditional road base that's outside of everybody's parking lot today, right? That's dense graded aggregate that has a lot of different particle sizes. This material has very narrow range, and it's gapped so that it creates void space. Most regulations give it a 20% void space. So that's volume detention in that aggregate. But along with that comes a high flow or a high permeability capability. And so there's no fines in the material. So think of it as the quarry fractures the rock and sizes it. It's very easy to specify this because they have screens. They wash it, and this would be commonly called in New England like drainage stone. And so it's got the same structural capabilities of it, but it's got a lot of advantages. One of the advantages is that by not having the fines, it's not susceptible to frost. They want to keep water out of roadway base material because when that base material gets wet, those fine particles lubricate and get weak. Also, that material can freeze and limit the permeability. The open graded aggregate has the same permeability, and it has the same structural capability, whether it's frozen or wet or not. So when I have void space, I have volume detention. Whenever I'm holding volume, whether it's a detention basin or not, I'm starting pollutant reduction. So think of this as maybe like a basin that has pavers on top of it. It's really quite similar. So what are the other features of this? When you're using these aggregates in the joints, they meet a filter criteria. So of course they're going to capture sediments. That's why New Jersey says by default, TSS 80% removal. If you believe that sediment will get into the joints, well, then it's cleaning it. Total suspended solids is one of the most common pollutants of concern because it's a tracer of pollutants, whether it's nutrients or other pollutants. It's one of the easiest to track for pollutants. The other thing is there's a large surface area. This is important because in a parking lot, if you have a dripping oil, people say, what's going to happen to it? Well, if the oil even migrates very far, which it seldom does because it gets hung up on essentially large surface areas. So you got a glob of oil on an aggregate in a oxygen-rich, moist environment very often, and that's perfect for biodegradation. So there are numerous studies in academia that show that in all permeable pavement systems that use open-graded aggregates, you can break down and not only capture any pollutants before it leaves the pavement, but it biodegrades. University of New Hampshire proved in a permeable pavement study with this exact same paver as proposed several years ago at their stormwater center that we have mass load reduction. We've got basically a collection box for the rainwater to either filter or settle out. And that includes nutrients. And I'll explain how that works as well. So when you have water entering rapidly, at the bottom is going to be the subgrade soil, right? Which the testing has shown, which the research has shown is a loam that is pretty granular, right? But regardless, it's different permeability than that material, right? That void space. So it's going to come in during a rain event, and then it's going to slowly go somewhere else. It's either going to be infiltrated into the ground, which is why it's an infiltration practice in the state of Connecticut when you have good soils like you do at this site. So when you have water that sits there, denitrification occurs, and there's documented academic research that we are removing nutrients and phosphorus. So whenever we reduce the volume, we get treatment, and these kind of systems are proven to treat water quality. A lot of people ask about capturing the sediments, when they come in. They get caught in the near surface, and that's a good thing. So we are capturing sediments because it acts like your air filter, right? You've got every air filter has an apparent opening size, and it's, what is that same consistent size? It's very much like filter aggregate in those joints. So we're straining physically and grabbing particulate, and those particulates are a surrogate for pollutants when they're there. So we're filtering. If it gets through that, it's settling out, and then it can also absorb. There's some pollutants that will attach or into the aggregate base. And then there's secondary processes going on, such as the biodegradation. So that's how it works. It is proven to remove TSS. It is a great filter, permeable interlocking concrete pavement. The documentation from University of North Carolina, from UNH, from multiple academia show that there is nutrient and phosphorus reduction. It is based on site conditions and how long the water sits there. So what do we have in these systems? First, it's a driving surface, right? It's a heavy-duty pavement. There's no question there that we exceed strength, that we have design data for up to 1 million easels by the American Society of Civil Engineering. Second, it's a collection system. The openings are the inlets, and this is why it's considered green stormwater infrastructure. We are not concentrating the water in a stormwater inlet. That's gray infrastructure. All that does is high volume, high flow, and wherever that discharge is, you've got thermal loading too. So another benefit in treatment is when you infiltrate naturally into the ground over a large surface area like a parking lot, you are getting the benefit of not releasing water to these streams that could be warmed during the summer. We know that these infiltration or these openings have a high surface infiltration rate. There's plenty of test data showing well over 500 inches per hour. So the surface is never the limiting factor. And those joints that produce that 11% open area are 3/8 of an inch or 10 millimeters. It's exactly between 1/4 and 1/2 of an inch. And that's a good thing because the aggregates that you can specify in New England, like ASTM number 8 stone, are 3/8 inch chip. So they fit the gap. A bigger gap is not better. A bigger gap would just let some possibility of the aggregate leaving the joint, and a smaller gap would make it harder to maintain. So a lot of research at academia has shown that that's the sweet spot. We talked about the water quality benefits, which include heavy metals. That's there. We're really conveying the water and moving the water. There's typically a slope, but you're able to actually do, a lot of places use it for delayed time release so that the rain event occurs, it goes through the system, and then if it has to come out, it comes out. And that saves a lot on downstream effects. That's our problem when we pipe and gutter things, is we take a high volume with a peak flow. And so now when you infiltrate it in a nature-based solution like permeable pavement,
Mr. Early, it seems like you're frozen on the screen and we lost your audio. Amaris, is that what you're seeing on your side?
Yeah, we've got a static screen and I've lost visual with him. Yep, and he's dropped off.
Yeah, so he probably had a technical issue with his internet. Mr. Crusaden, while he gets back into the session, is there anything else you wanted to put on the record this evening, whether through Mr. Wheeway or what have you?
He looks to be back, Mr. Chair, but I do have.
Okay,
Matthew Pop.
that's fine. Yeah, Mr. Early, you're back. Mr. Early, we see you now. Are you hearing us?
Mr.
I
Chair,
do.
Yep, we can hear you, Mr. Early.
I'm sorry, it looks like I got dropped a few seconds ago.
Yeah, we lost your video and then your audio cut out. So you were presenting, talking about the TSS continuation.
Right, and the pavers. So am I not sharing my screen now?
Correct. Yeah, you'll have to reshare.
Okay, so I'm just gonna, sorry about that.
The last chevron just showed up when you started speaking to that. That's when we lost you.
Yeah, that's interesting. You know, these, I'm trying to minimize my screen so I can share. Let's see if this works here. All right, are you seeing?
Yes, we are. Mhm.
All right. So I don't know if you had heard, but I was talking about the permeable paver features.
It was your last point on the prior slide that you were speaking to when we lost you under storage.
Storage, okay. So I apologize about that. I don't know what happened.
No problem.
In my experience, I use all these broadcasting systems, and Zoom to me is the least stable. Anyway, so yeah, there is the storage benefit of having all that open graded aggregate. And you get those 5 benefits. So the permeable paver is proposed by the applicant is a rectangle, which is structurally the most ideal paver as far as strength and interlock. The product has spacer bars. It's smooth surface. It's used for ADA. It's got micro chamfers. It's really at an optimal size, and it's got an optimal opening for infiltration and maintenance. These are the things on the spec sheet that you've probably seen. So just to kind of summarize how the design is when you have permeable pavers, you consider the design storm requirements, any contributory drainage, which in this case is not significant, if anything, and you basically design these systems for that type of detention. And that's what the applicant has done to meet the retention requirements. And so in their submittal package, you have a typical infiltration detail where there's more than the minimum subbase required by industry standards. And you notice that the 2 feet separation, which is the requirement in Connecticut when you don't have I believe it's a non-potable water. So there was a question I was asked about maintenance. All stormwater control measures require maintenance, the traditional ones as well as the green infrastructure ones. And I think it's one of the best advantages is if there is sediment that is causing clogging, you see it, and it's very easy to maintain because it comes in along the side, like you see here, but it doesn't, it's very isolated hotspot. That's because when the rainwater hits some areas that the joints have picked up sediment, it says, uh-oh, I'm getting resistance to flow. I'll go left and right because it's a heavy downpour until I can infiltrate. And so there's a lot of research on the fact that this is the ideal scenario. Much like your air filter still works, clogging is not an issue. It's a reduction in flow. But we have high flow on these permeable pavements. These test out initially at 700 to 800 inches per hour. And then as we collect sediment, as it works as designed, that will come down. But 700 to 800 inches per hour is several orders above the subgrade infiltration. So your air filters, your HVAC still works when you collect sediment in your air filter. It's the same kind of thing. So you can see this. Other stormwater control measures that have confined space, it's tough to inspect them. These are easy. And so the industry has guidelines on specific cleaning. You want to do routine maintenance to just keep that crust from developing. It can be done with a range of equipment. There's no shortage of machinery designed to clean pavements. There's such a thing as, I think, 1-800 sweeper, probably right in your area, where you can get these mechanical sweepers that can not only clean those joints, but they have a vacuum assist to put them in the hopper. And there's all kinds of things. Even the backpack leaf blowers, I see a lot of utility people use those to maintain them. There's companies. There's one company in New England, Stormwater Compliance, that specializes in cleaning permeable pavements. So plenty of equipment, plenty of solutions, easy to replace joint aggregate if it's lost. And then, you know, it used to be, do permeable pavements work? We are well beyond that. It's pretty well understood by every regulatory agency at the federal and state level that this is a BMP. That's why it's in the Connecticut manual. And so a lot of people say, well, what about the maintenance? So in the last 5 years, there's been a lot of research on the maintenance capacity, equipment testing. I'll just highlight one example, and that's the US EPA's ongoing testing of clogging of permeable pavements, and just highlight the conclusions of this ongoing research. This is done in a site in New Jersey, showing that the clogging is random, it's isolated, it's where you'd expect, and it's slow. And it takes a long time for these systems to be a problem where you have to restore the joint infill. And this site in particular is ideal because there's not contributory drainage that would provide that from runoff from impervious surface. And, you know, roof drains are clean, and when piped into the system, they don't impede the rainwater infiltration. They're piped right into the system. And so a lot of systems can take a lot of water from roof drains if the space is done. And so this is why it's considered 100% pervious. I mean, there are academic references that say these systems don't produce runoff. And I've seen it. It's been documented by academia. And when they don't have contributory drainage area in particular, the water is going to go in the system. And what happens inside the system is a function of the subgrade soils. And in your case, you have good soils. People ask about winter performance. This really is a selling feature of eliminating black ice. Municipalities spend a lot of money with de-icing salts, which is bad for the environment. And it's because of the refreeze at night. Well, when you have a permeable pavement surface that is infiltrating at the surface, you don't have the black ice. Second thing is, we talked about how the aggregates are clean. They're not susceptible to frost. You've got that void space. So these systems are very stable and do not get interfered with winter conditions. In fact, they're used more frequently per capita in Canada than the United States, and they're used in New England, they're used in Europe. They can be plowed. People ask, can they be plowed all the time? Remember, they have a chamfer, and they are regularly plowed on surfaces. Actually, I think this thing plays. I don't know if you can see it, but people ask if it can be plowed, and of course they can be plowed. So I'm going to leave you with one last thought that comes from a professor at the University of Connecticut, Professor John Rosen, that has been advocating green stormwater infrastructure. And his whole premise is that traditional design is taking the water and saying, hey, let's collect it, let's pipe it and centralize it. And there's where we could manage the stormwater. So curb, gutter, pipe, pond is a very common solution because they know exactly the volume that they have to manage. But it's old school, and it's in many municipalities and in some states, it's no longer acceptable. You have to use LID. And he basically was always saying the 3 C's have been shifted to the 3 Ds. You want to distribute and decentralize the water. Well, a pavement and the joints in a pavement area distribute the water. That's why it's nature-based solution. That's why everybody considers it green stormwater infrastructure. And it's a decentralized process because you're entering it there. And so I think really the future is the low impact development. So unless there's any questions, Mr. Chair, that concludes my testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Early. My only observation and request would be on the slide that you referenced in reference to the clogging study for the EPA, if you can provide that following.
Yes. Yes, we could do that.
I'm sure there may be others that have questions, but that just is top of mind. Mr. Kersaden, who's
Yes,
next?
Mr. Chair, we have Mr. Matthew Pop, landscape architect and professional wetlands scientist to speak this evening.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Pop.
Good evening, Matthew Pop, landscape architect, professional wetland scientist. I prepared actually, I visited the site last week, and I prepared, what I did was when I went there, the first thing I did was, is there any place that we could, improve water quality, outside of the project area? So when you go there, there's the existing house just adjacent to the site, and I prepared a plan that has a mitigation buffer. So there's on the site adjacent to the project, there's a lawn area that goes almost right up to the water course itself. It's probably about maybe 10 feet away from the water course. The lawn right now, it's not maintained great. Some people would call it like a freedom lawn. It doesn't look like it's fertilized or any pesticides applied to it. But that doesn't mean in the future, if someone lived there, that they would be maintaining that lawn with chemicals and fertilizers. So I thought that it would be great to improve, or reduce that chance and just improve that wetland buffer. So I prepared again a planting plan for that. I think the buffer is approximately 5,300 square feet of lawn area that would be converted from lawn to meadow with tree plantings, mainly oaks and black gums, and shrub plantings. The shrub plantings are kind of right along the near the watercourse itself, and then further away, it's more of a meadow area. The meadow area would be cut once a year, usually in the winter time, and then that area is kind of protected by a boulder row. So again, I think that this project, it was just an opportunity to improve the water quality of the existing condition. So that's what I prepared. Kind of listened to part of the testimony tonight, kind of in agreement, with it. Seems like the wetland itself is fairly far from the proposed pavers, and I think that I'm not sure if you can see the mitigation plan, but anyway, but I don't have the option to put it up right now. I'm on my phone. So again, that's it.
Mr. Pop, just to clarify for the record, Mayor Rose, have we received such a plan from Mr. Pop yet?
I don't believe we received it yet.
Oh,
no.
okay. Okay, so they'll be forthcoming. Again, that's what it is. It's mainly removing the lawn area from the south side of the existing house, restores 5,300 square feet of wetland buffer. When I was at the site, there was no water flowing within the stream itself. It was kind of caught me by surprise. I thought there would have been some flow or something. And so to me, it's kind of a flashy wetland system, kind of a typical wetland or typical stream within an urban area. So we'll submit that plan. Mary Rose, I'll send that to you.
Okay, do you want me to share the existing? We've got a green colored copy of SP5 to highlight the area you're proposing to work on.
Yeah, if you could, yeah. So it's basically all of that dark green area. So underneath that dark green area, there's lawn, almost right up to that hatched area right there. And that's, I think, the floodplain area. But it might even go beyond that, closer towards the stream. So all of that dark green area, which is the tree line, that would be restored. There's a couple of large Norway maples that overhang the house in that area. Those are probably near their limit of their age. Those would be taken down. There's one sugar maple that would remain, and again there would be oaks and black gums planted in there. So right along that hatched area would be where the shrubs are proposed, and as you move towards closer to the existing house, that area is just mainly meadow and with the shade trees above it. The meadow would be established by just allowing the existing lawn area to revert naturally, just stop cutting it. Again, right along that, almost right along where that tree line is, the edge of it is where the boulder row would go. And that boulder row, again, just demarcates the limit of the lawn area. One thing I did on my plan, I just adjusted the parking area slightly in front of that house to make it looks like it's kind of tough to back in and out. So I just made it more of a practical use for the house. So that is it. Quickly.
Okay, thanks for the overview, Mr. Pop, and we'll be in receipt of your proposed plan for our review. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Crusaden?
Yes, I would end with Mr. Weiwei if he has any wrap-up comments about this evening or moving forward. And Mary Rose, I would grant that extension for the till the next meeting. I'll send an email or a letter to you as well.
Just to clarify, you're granting an extension to 9/17 or 10/1?
We were going to grant an extension till 9/17 at this time, and I'll send you a letter for that.
Okay.
Thank you, Crusaden. Go ahead, Mr. Weiwei.
Okay, good evening. As long as Matt is on, I'd just like to have him maybe opine on any analysis he's done up to this point with respect to the permeable pavement system and any or lack of any impacts to the adjacent wetland systems.
Again, Matthew Pop, professional wetland scientist, landscape architect. 10 years ago, nobody had kind of pervious pavement or like this, but now it seems like it's used on almost every application that I work on. Everybody uses them. It's well recognized as a method for treating stormwater runoff. One thing, as noted earlier, when it snows, there's no black ice on the pavement because the water flows through the pavement. So there's no really need for treating snow or ice, which is a great improvement, for the water quality. So again, the pavers are fairly far away from the wetland, the water course in the wetland. It's almost I think 80 feet or so distance wise. So I would think that this project with the mitigation plan that I kind of proposed, would not have a adverse impact to the water course or the wetland. It just downstream of the wetland does go underneath Cherry Street, right down to the south of the site. So and if there's any way to collect the runoff or collect the sediment from Buick Street, Buick Ave, that would be a benefit to the project. Maybe that we could stick a small depression along the roadside to catch any sediment. But I think that's off to the site in that location there.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Pop. Mr. Weiwei?
Yeah, I don't really have anything to add tonight. Again, we've received the reviews within the last week, and obviously, looking at the reviews, there's a lot to disseminate in there. So we will be providing responses and revising drawings where appropriate, and we're hoping to have all that done prior to the October 1st meeting, which would basically give us about 3 weeks right now, I believe, to get them into you a week before that meeting. So we do have quite a bit of work on our end to get all those issues addressed, and we'll take it from there.
Thank you, Mr. Weiwei.
Through you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mary Rose.
We've got an extension granted to 9/17, but we may not receive information and plans until 9/24, it sounds like, for the 10/1 meeting.
Right. Yeah, so that does pose a technical issue for us, Mr. Crusaden.
Yeah, I would, Mr. Chair, I think that we can, I just prefer to grant the limited extension, and we can grant another one on 9/17 if necessary.
Understood.
In the event that we're able to get the information to you sooner.
No problem. Mayor Rose, does that address the concern?
It does, as long as we've got an extension on the books. That is the rebuttal portion of the meeting. If the applicant has no other information they want to present, the next part of the process is public speaking for and against, and then we would go to agency questions.
Yeah, I believe we have given opportunity for the public to speak. I believe at this time, unless there's any one that's joined that hasn't spoken on July 16th, I'm going to move forward with the agency questions.
I see no hands up, Mr. Chairman.
I have a hand up. I have a hand up. Hand up.
Yes, Ms. Bromley, you were recognized in the July 16th meeting, so.
I just wanted to, I don't know I was recognized then, but at that point I did not realize that I was trying to honor a 3-minute limit, and I didn't realize people after me were going to speak for like 20, 30 minutes.
I'm sorry, but so what is the concern, Ms. Bromley?
I won't make a statement now because I want to respect your ruling. I just was feeling very frustrated that it was my first inland wetlands meeting. I wasn't aware of your policies, so I am familiar with other boards' policies, so I kept my comments super short. And then I stayed on till the midnight and heard other neighbors making way longer comments. So I'm not going to make a comment now. I'll stop, but I just wanted to say I really appreciate all your hard work on this. I'm trying to learn about this as someone who feels the tension between needing to strike a balance between housing that we desperately need and all of these other issues. And I'll stop, but I really appreciate your work.
I think you've had an ample opportunity, and for the record, we did not limit anyone's time to 3 minutes. So that was a myth. That's fine. It's no judgment, but we did not limit that. We encouraged folks to talk to the concerns that they had. So moving on, we have a lot of information that we've received. So I'd like to ask the agency, what questions do you have, having received the reports from Mary Rose? What questions do you have?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Mr. Field.
Given the magnitude of the outside comments from the other engineers, there's just so much information. Plus, we haven't heard from the city engineer. I think at this point, in fairness to the applicant, it's best that we let them, respond to all that. And there's just a wealth of new information that they're going to need time. That way we can make an educated decision. So it's kind of, I really don't want to waste my time asking questions, because you have to give the engineer and you have to give the applicant and his experts time to refute all the stuff that we've heard tonight from the other engineers.
Correct. Yeah, I feel strongly the same way. Mr. Field and I did say at the onset that we did commission a study from Mr. Ryder, who's present. Independent of that, a study was done by Mr. Trinkus and another expert from WKA, William Kenny Associates. So it is appropriate for us, in my view, like you said, to give the applicant the opportunity to respond to those. I would invite Mr. Ryder, if there's anything that you feel rises to a compelling point that you want to mention to us at this time. We obviously have received a report, and thank you for that, but is there anything as an opportunity for the agency that you wanted to share?
Well, first, Tom Ryder, senior ecologist with Land Tech, and I'm here with Rob Pryor, engineer with Land Tech. The report that we prepared was co-written by both of us, both from an environmental and engineering report. So I just wanted to put that out there. We do have comments, and we could go through them and highlight them if you wish. I'm getting the impression maybe you don't want us to. I don't quite. I'll follow your lead here, but we are here to maybe embellish or point out some of our comments if you wish, or we can let the report stand on its own.
I'm open to questions that other agency members have. I'm on the same mindset that Buddy is, that I've read the reports. There's certainly a lot of concerns that the report that you've authored, co-authored. There's certainly a lot of concerns that need to be addressed. There's a lot of uncertainty that I have.
Then what may be best, if I may, is that when we receive the comments back from the applicants, that we get the opportunity to provide additional comments to fine tune the responses and maybe provide additional comments as well in another letter, if that's appropriate.
Indeed, and I think that would be an opportune time for us to have a conversation as well.
Okay.
Maybe narrowly focused on where the issues really are. I say it in a way like the compelling issues. There's just so many at this point that have been identified. We want to, I think, prioritize the ones that have the biggest impact. That would be my suggestion, given my experience on the board. But I'm open to other thoughts. Mr. Field weighed in. What about others on the commission? Mr. Matthew Connors?
I was just going to say I agree with Buddy. I do have questions, but I think out of respect for time and efficiency, I want to reserve those questions for when we get the response from the applicant.
Mary Rose is raising her hand.
The applicant may be better able to respond if you can at least highlight your questions. They can't answer questions they don't know you have. Obviously, they've seen the Land Tech report, they've received the Trinkus report, the Kenny report, but they don't know what the agency's focuses are. So if anyone has a question they'd like to get on the record so that the applicant has the ability to address those. Questions that were emailed to me were sent to the applicant for review. So those have been sent, but now that you've gotten the consulting reports, you may have questions. Mr. Trinkus and Mr. Ryder, Mr. Pryor all brought up the distance to the soils and is that going to work? Stormwater manual seems to call for 36 inches. The expert from Oldcastle said he feels it only needs to be 24. He didn't identify as an engineer, he identified as a geologist, but that distance matters and that needs to be cleared up.
Right, Mr. Black?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. I guess one of the questions I heard, in the report, it had talked about increased water flow into Stony Brook, and Mr. Pop had mentioned that he didn't see any water flow at all. I guess one of the things I'd like to know is, with this runoff, with all this, is that going to increase that water flow, which might create some erosion in Stony Brook Pond or Stony Brook Stream there?
Stubby plain.
Yes, thank you.
And Mr. Black, do you want Mr. Ryder to comment on that? Would you like some response now?
Yeah, I guess it's great to hear. I'm sure the applicant has their opinion too, but it'd be great to hear some, elaboration on that.
Well, I'm sorry, if you could repeat the question, because I thought some of the question had to do with Matt Pop's landscaping plan that hasn't been issued yet.
Yeah, through Mr. Chair, I guess on the report, I think it was ENCV6 mentioned that there'd be increased water flow that could create some erosion into that creek. Mr. Pop said when he was on site on a visit yesterday or this week that he did not see any water flow going into that.
Yeah, I've been to the site twice, and I have that channel has been dry. We've obviously in a dry condition anyway, so. But the conditions of that channel indicate it's a flash flood type of environment where you get low flow or no flow, and then due to the watershed, you get all of a sudden all this water coming through here, and then it dries up again or it gets down to minimal flow. So that's consistent with what I've seen.
And that raises a point I'd just like to make. Thanks, Mr. Black. I think for me, I'd like to make sure that as we're contemplating these concerns and this application, that we're having balance on both the impervious pavement design and the potential impacts to the wetlands, as well as the construction of the street and those impacts, because it seems like we've spent a lot of time in this hearing talking about the pavers, but it seems like there's ample concern and uncertainty in my mind around the proposed construction of the road. And even Mr. Ryder, you commented in your report, you made some suggestions about moving the road and widening the road, and I thought those were well placed. But so I would just like to make sure that the applicant considers all of the application, not exclusively just the paver scenario. That I have serious concerns about the impacts in that road area because of the close proximity of the water courses themselves.
And Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Go ahead, Mr.
In land tech, under the permeable system, he has on ENGC4. Land tech makes a reference, for the overflow of the cell 1, the lowest cell. And then the applicant may wish to consider a catch basin or other formal overflow device at this location, because everything flows downhill. Eventually, it will go over the road. And then the other thing that was brought up by Attorney Green was, okay, so you develop the road's, going to be paved, and, you get serious rainstorms. What is going to, once the water goes over that road, what's going to prevent that? And then I think on land tech, they also had, they didn't really have any, it said there wasn't really any soil tests or drainage tests for that runoff pipe, the 4-inch pipe, if I'm understanding it correctly. There's just so much information here going in so many different directions. And, I don't want the applicant to redesign everything and all of a sudden there's things they missed. So I don't know, are they going to take both reports and incorporate or ask us what they're looking for? Because there are a lot of valid questions from land tech. And, like I said, I'm not an engineer. I've seen it practical over the years. So, and I see things they brought up and it's like, okay, we see it now. And I just want to bring it out, because I don't want Coda Sporty to design, what they think should be done. And then all of a sudden we're like, hey, well, Land Tech said this, or Trinka said this, or, the Attorney Green brought up these points, and, Attorney Crusade brought up some good points, and Bob brought up some good points. So we kind of have to get a balance. And it seems that it's what's coming out of this project, what we're concerned with. And is it treated? Is it coming out too fast? The water that's coming from Sunnyside flowing through, is there a storm scepter or a water quality treatment for when it gets to the end and just comes out of the head wall? I mean, things like that, because it is going to dump right into the brook. So, I mean, you can sit here and it could drive you crazy. All the comments they came at you at such a quick time, and you're sitting there, it kind of makes our heads spin.
Yeah, and I think we've got an approach, though. I think Mr. Ryder summed it up best. When the applicant responds to their report, we'll have an opportunity to review those, and we'll have Mr. Ryder and Mr. Pryor speak to whether or not their concerns have been addressed. To the extent that they haven't, we'll rely on their expertise, and that's part of the proposal. And Mr. Ryder and Mr. Pryor, if you could just comment again, just to make sure I'm speaking correctly here.
Gotcha. Okay. No, I'd rather bring it up now and say, hey, we're going to deal with it, and as opposed to they spend all this time and money and, and then say, geez, no one brought it up,
Right.
So.
Yeah, Mr. Ryder, can you just comment on what my assertion there?
Yes, I mean, that the assertion is that we will receive the comments. We will prepare our own reports, which will basically go comment by comment, and will indicate if they have adequately addressed our comments or if more information is needed. And that will be done on a comment by comment basis for both environmental and engineering.
Great. Mr. Gradwell, did you have anything? Sorry, Mr. Connors. Mr. Gradwell, did you have something you wanted to say?
I did, Mr. Chair, and through you. And, I think there's been a lot of discussion about, what happens on site with respect to the grading and stormwater management and stormwater treatment. My concerns in and around Stubby Brook, that is a FEMA regulated basically stream, and our driveway, or the proposed applicant's driveway, sits between two culverts that appear to overtop during a 10-year storm. So, you can trap potentially 50 plus residents in that area with the overtopping of the culvert on either side of the driveway. So that's where more of my concerns are. I don't know if the applicants really addressed offsite flooding that could contribute to, trapping people on sites with respect to the two culverts that are east and west of the main driveway to the site. So I'd really like to hear more about that from the applicant at some point, to make sure that, if we do put residents on the site, it does get approved and residents, be actively, accessing that site, that they have the ability to kind of leave that site at a heavy rainfall.
I guess perhaps to Mr. Ryder and Mr. Pryor, in your expert opinion, did you contemplate Mr. Gradwell's concerns? Did you consider those impacts from a hydrology perspective?
For the record, Rob Pryor, professional engineer, land surveyor with Land Tech. There was no evaluation of the existing culverts in the application materials with regard to flooding. So the application, I think, is on that concern right now. So there was nothing to review from our standpoint with regard to that.
So you broke up there. I believe you said the application is insufficient or incomplete.
I said that I think the application is silent with regard to the evaluation of flooding, existing flooding on Stubby Plain Brook, relevant to the two culverts that Mr. Gradwell talked about. So there's really nothing for us to review there. But certainly, and I'm not sure it's the purview of the Wetlands Commission or Planning and Zoning as far as a safety thing regarding flooding when that happens. But I don't think the application at this point addresses that concern. I think the application is silent on that concern right now.
Okay, Mr. Gradwell, did you want to comment on that since you're raising it?
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Pryor that the application really doesn't say anything about those two culverts that are basically, you got to cross to get to the site on either direction, that, past the Stubby Brook. So that's where my concerns are with respect to this application, is in and around the flooding, Stubby Brook, and making sure that, the wetlands are protected in and around Stubby Brook, but make sure people can get in and out of the site if needed.
Mary Rose, if you could please weigh in.
Kind of to encapsulate that, if something needs to be done to those culverts to make a safe entry and exit for the prospective tenants of this apartment building, that geometry of the road that's going to change would be within our review area. So I think what Mr. Pryor is saying is, we don't have the information yet, but as they work through it, they can show us that they're going to they can or can't do something about the potential overflow of that culverts and the safe passages of people in and out. Because if it's not addressed here, it's going to be addressed in zoning, and then it's going to need to come back here because any changes to that road that aren't on the plan are still within our review area and will need to be shown to us.
Mr. Crusaden, are you taking note of this as it relates to the concern?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I've been following along and taking notes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other compelling points? Mr. Matthew Connors, I believe you wanted to speak.
Yeah, just to Mary Rose's point earlier, I wanted to highlight a couple questions that hopefully we could have answered for the next meeting. One of them was the question that she had raised that I was interested in, is why is there a discrepancy with the 3-foot requirement for the 2024 CTDEP storm water management plan and what is proposed? What makes them, what makes the applicant think that that is sufficient? The second one, I wanted to, the question addressed as far as compacting the soil underneath the gravel. Does that have an effect on the water quality in any way? And in relation to that, the height of the outfall, the drainage pipe, in terms of slowing that water down. If that soil does get compacted, that means that that basin will fill up quicker and potentially not hold as much water compared to the depth of that outfall. So I'm just curious in regards to that standpoint.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Connors. Any other comments from the agency at this time?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, just to go on with Mr. Matt Connors. The outfall that goes around the development takes water from Sunnyside Court and brings it down to Stubby Plain Brook and goes into that head wall. But there is no outfall from the stormwater system, the pervious pavers. That is just presumed to infiltrate the ground where it sits. There's no overflow chamber or overflow pipe that will come out of that system.
Understood. Yeah, no, I guess I got confused because the first slide of Kevin Early showed a pipe coming out of that system. So that's not in this plan, correct?
No, I mean, that's a typical design to have an overflow pipe, but I should be sharing sheet SP3 right now. And Mr. Weiwei, please correct me. Stormwater coming in from Sunnyside Court would come in here by this wall and this swale, enter this catch basin and come around where it would meet. It would also come around on the west side. They would join and go into the pipe that's in the head wall in Stubby Plain Brook. These structures that come across the cells for the stormwater system are not overflow pipes. They do not connect to that stormwater system that goes around the site. They're part of that weir baffle system to allow overflow between the 5 cells.
Understood. Thanks.
Mr. Trinkus and Mr. Pryor brought up that concern about potential overflow from this cell and that there should be a catch basin or something here to catch any water that doesn't settle in and might go off site.
Yeah, so Mary Rose through the chair, this is Bob Weiwei. Just to clarify when you were pointing there, Mary Rose, so when it comes into yard drain 3, it's going to flow to the west because that would pick up the drainage there and it takes it around the west side.
Gotcha.
And that's basically the 18-inch pipe that would be discharged to the existing head wall. The other pipe system that you're referring to down on the east side starts at yard drain 2, which is further down, starts right about there. So that basically picks up just a little bit of the perimeter drainage from our site, and as you can see from the plans, that's a much smaller diameter pipe. Just to further a point of clarification, this paver system has 0 discharge for up to the 50-year storm. So for all the storms that are less than a 50-year duration or 50-year event, all the runoff from the pavers or from the parking area as well as the roofs stays within the pavement system. So there is no overflow, no outflow whatsoever from the system. So where it comes up is it would be for more getting up to the 100-year storm in those situations. There would be an overflow coming out of that paver cell 1. So I think, as was pointed out in the Land Tech report, that is obviously something that we will be looking at, and we will probably come up with some type of an overflow structure there and tie that in with yard drain 1. to deal with that. So I think, you know, and it seems like going back between the reports and even listening to some of the comments from the commission, they may be misconstrued that there's runoff from this paving system, and I think that's one of the unique things is that there's nothing coming off of the site for anything up to a 50-year storm event. You know, so likewise, with regards to the flows that are coming down the Stubby Plain Brook, we're basically taking this whole area and taking that out of the system in the way of surface discharge. So we're basically replenishing the groundwater table through the area. So if you think about it, it's very similar to what's out there in present day, where right now you have the lawn area that's basically makes up the majority of the site. So the rainfall comes down, it hits the grass, it infiltrates in, and goes towards groundwater recharge. This paver system, as Mr. Early had pointed out, is doing a very similar thing because the pavement system is spread out over the majority of the site. So we're mimicking Mother Nature and what's presently exists out there today by distributing that water that gets intercepted by the pavement system and distributing it across a very large portion of the site and allowing that to infiltrate back into the ground and recharge the water table. So what may be happening now with the surface flows that are getting out to Buick Avenue, running down there, running across either the adjacent properties or directly into the brook, that's not going to take place with the proposed development. So with regards to Buick Avenue is already paved. So there's already impervious surfaces that are going through there. And albeit we are going to be doing some pavement widening, but it shouldn't be viewed as that this is a new roadway system that wasn't there prior to. So there will be, you know, a slight increase in impervious surface there, but when you factor in that you're no longer going to be receiving overland surface flow from the majority of our site, it kind of offsets the impacts from what's happening with the increase with the slight increase in the impervious coverage there. So, you know, one of the things that we'll have to take a closer look at is dealing, what's the most efficient way of dealing with the water quality aspect of Buick Avenue as a result of that increase in impervious surface. And to that extent, our hands are somewhat tied because we have limited right-of-way to work in. So when you take a look at the right-of-way that's coming in off of Cherry Street for the first part of Buick Avenue for the first 110 or 120 feet, we are basically street line to street line, property line to property line. So there's no ability in there for us to really be able to provide any shoulder treatment or anything else like that. It's not until we get up near the bend in the road where we've got that triangle right away that we can do some work in. So that's obviously something that we'll have to, you know, take a closer look at the Land Tech comments and see what we could come up with as far as providing some additional treatment for that portion of the runoff. You know, with regards to the flooding issues, again, that's really going to be more of a planning and zoning issue. I don't think that necessarily comes under the purview of this commission, but as was pointed out, the culverts do overtop in a 10-year rainfall event, and obviously it gets to a greater extent as you get up to the 100-year event. I believe in our analysis when we looked at it, and the fire marshal has signed off on the accessibility to the site, and generally speaking, for these types of roadway systems, which would be more common down along the beachfront area where you have storm events that come up there. It's the generally accepted practice that for the 100-year event, if the water surface is 2 feet, that
Mr.
becomes
Connors, can you mute your line? Go ahead, Mr. Weeway.
Yeah, so for the 10-year event, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but there is a slight overtopping of the roadway, but we're talking probably less than 6 inches to a foot for the 10-year event in that area. And again, I'll have to dig into the flood profiles for Stubby Plain Brook and get a little bit more detailed information on that for the commission.
Okay, thanks very much for that, Mr. Weiwei. Ms. Valvo, did you want to comment?
So through you, Mr. Chair, you actually just touched on a concern that I have, which is the flooding concerns on Sunnyside, that the residents, do currently have flooding issues. And I'm afraid that this project could potentially negatively impact the flow that's already there and potentially make it worse. Now, with what you have planned, do you anticipate that making the drainage better from what's happening over there? So a lot of the folks complain that when it does rain, they get a lot of backlog in their yards. And if there were, more negative impact on increased flooding to their properties, what would what would happen with that?
Yeah, the only thing I would just like to caution is we need to be focused on the wetlands impact as far as flooding.
That's not wetlands? Okay.
Well, flooding in, it's a gray line, but Mary Rosa, I just want to make sure we're balancing the statutes around that.
Through you, Mr. Chairman. Wetland Agency does not have control of flooding. Where we ask flooding questions is if this area floods, will there be additional materials running into the wetlands that could negatively impact the wetlands? Will the speed of the water getting into the wetlands additionally erode an area or cause a problem in the wetlands? Dumping material debris, eroding away surfaces, impacting the water quality in the wetland and the turbidity in the wetland.
Thank you. Thank you for that clarification. Mr. Ritchie?
I don't know if I could even speak on behalf of the Wetlands Commission about this, since what Mary Rose said. I am familiar with Stubby Plain Brook. It does come from northern Milford. It goes from 0 to 100 in a rainstorm, and upstream it affects it downstream. My concern is the overall scope of the project and any overflow from the river in that rain event, where the parking lot and the permeable pavers and the building, there's grass and trees there now, which it has the ability to slowly absorb that runoff and filter it before it goes into the water course. I don't know if that would be in our purview to discuss this now. Kind of like what
based on what you just said, you just expressed the concern that is in our purview. So
okay.
I believe Mr. Weiwei can address that. And Mr. Weiwei, could you please address the general flooding concerns just for our information as well?
Yeah, I think with regards to the flooding and when you take a look at the 100-year floodplain, with the exception of the Buick Avenue improvements and our initial driveway access coming up to the first paver cell, the rest of the project is going to be outside of the floodplain. So when the Stubby Plain Brook floods and overtops the culverts, gets backed up at the next culvert down by Cherry Street, and that water backs up through Buick Avenue, our project is basically above that flood elevation. And again, as I pointed out, our paver system is not going to be releasing any surface flow to the adjacent areas in Stubby Plain Brook. With the exception that once we start getting up to the 100-year rainfall event. But when you take a look at the numbers that were calculated in our drainage report, our peak flow rates are substantially diminished for all storms analyzed from the 2 through 100-year event, as well as the volumes of runoff for the 2 through 100-year event. So while, for the 50 and 100-year, there may be some levels of runoff coming from the site, they have been substantially and significantly reduced from what exists out there present day.
Mr. Ritchie?
Again, the concerns on Sunnyside Court, the residents over there, which when they were given testimony, they depicted the bubbling of water out of the ground. And my concern with the pavers and not have any retention systems on the proposed property, that's going to adversely affect it downstream when it runs off into over Buick Avenue and into the Stubby Plain Brook. That's just my concern, and we'll see if the reports from you later, identify that or make some amendments to that.
Yeah, I think the simple answer to that is when we look at Sunnyside Court and several of the neighbors that presented at the last meeting, Sunnyside's court is probably 10 feet higher than our site. So we have no impact on Sunnyside Court. Sunnyside Court impacts us. And likewise with some of the other neighbors that had testimony with flooding the Stubby Plain Brook and everything else, they are up gradient of us. So again, we're lower. We're not backing up any water in Stubby Plain Brook. So those concerns, while they're valid concerns, they have really nothing to do with our project.
Thank you, Mr. Weiwei. On a related note, Mr. Weiwei, it seems apparent to me as I reflect on the expert testimony from Mr. Early, is it Mr. Early earlier? Curly?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry. Listening to his testimony, listening to your prior testimony, looking at this design, would you characterize this design as sort of a hybrid design, both, and I'm kind of putting aside the Buick Avenue sort of portion of the design, but in regards to the bigger sort of the paver system and the, would you, I guess, try to explain this? In my mind, what I'm gathering from the testimony is that this application is a combination of the low density, with the pavers, as well as the sort of, as Mr. Early said, the old school design. It's a combination. It's got those, for the 100-year storm, those designs on the outer perimeter of the property to distribute water. Am I characterizing that correctly?
Not fully. Again, the pavers system is a green infrastructure practice. And as Mr. Early pointed out, it's well recognized throughout the country, and it's included in the Connecticut Stormwater Manual.
Right.
The piping that's around the perimeter, as we pointed out, the west side is for the sole benefit of the city of Milford in picking up the Sunnyside drainage. We have no benefit to that. We're not tying any of our drainage into that system whatsoever. The system over on the east side, as I pointed out, because we do have some overland flow that's coming onto our property from the adjacent neighbors to the north. So basically, rather than have that off-site stormwater flow onto our paver system, it's generally not a good idea, as Mr. Early pointed out, particularly with regards to the maintenance, to have other sources of surface flow coming onto the paver system. So in this particular case, we're intercepting that off-site flow through the swale system that's up on the north end of the building and piping that around the east side of the building and then tying that in with the 18-inch pipe.
Yeah, understood. And so what I'm feeding back is it's back to the slides that your expert presented. He talked about there being two schools of thought, the new design, the low density, and the old school. I forget the slide. It was DDD and CCC, whatever. What I'm just merely feeding back is this design incorporates both of those sort of strategies, for the lack of a better word.
No, not the paver system. No, the paver system does not. With Mr. Early in the slide that he was getting into, and I think this is typical of probably 95% of the applications that this commission sees, particularly on the smaller sites where you have everything is collected through a catch basin system. It's piped. It's piped to an endpoint where it's treated through either a combination of water quality structures, detention basins, or underground infiltration galleries. So that does not happen here because if you look at, we don't have a piped system that's directing water from the surface into it. We do have the underdrain system, but the underdrain system is basically to convey the stormwater and distribute it throughout the paver cell system. The pipes that are in there, they're small, they're 4-inch perforated pipes that allow for the distribution of the water that's collected to be distributed throughout the paver cells. And then as or in the case where a paver cell may fill up, and again, this is more pertinent to when you get up to the 50 and 100-year event, you have a waterfall effect where the overflow from paver cell 5 would drop down to paver cell 4, drop down to paver cell 2, until it gets down to paver cell 1. That's basically done.
Right, but Mr. Weewa, just to cut you off, I mean, what I'm trying to acknowledge is if I'm understanding your design correctly in regards to the wetlands and the watercourses, it's a combination, it's a hybrid approach. You've got a proposed paver system in the center of the diagram, right? And you've got these these interflows directors. I'm not using the right technical terms, but I'm just merely trying to acknowledge it's not a sort of it's not a all or nothing. It's a combination.
Right. Well, yeah. Let me just state that. All right. So if we took the Sunnyside Court drainage problem off the table, right? So if there were no upstream drainage issues or anything else, then that pipe system that we're proposing would not be there, and we would be handling everything just through the paver system. But again, we did recognize that there is an upstream drainage problem, and that upstream drainage problem is actually a detriment to our site under present day conditions. That overflow comes onto our site. So, in essence, we were basically intercepting that flow and rerouting it around our site so we didn't have to, it's not basically our responsibility to treat the off-site runoff that's coming onto our property. So we're basically taking it and running it around the perimeter and not commingling that with our permeable paver system. So I think to get to your point, there are two distinct systems, but they're, I guess for lack of a better term, you could say that they are hybrid because you do have a pipe system, albeit it's not for stormwater management and water quality treatment.
Okay. Thanks for the clarification. I appreciate it. Any other questions for the applicant or the expert? Okay, hearing none. If there's any additional questions that the agency has after this evening, by all means, as is practice, please issue those questions via email directly to Mary Rose or speak to Mary Rose directly. As per our process, right, there's no discussion amongst the agency offline. Yep, per our process. So let's see, as of this evening, we have the opportunity to close the hearing and make a decision or request an extension, which we've already requested an extension, and I don't believe we're in a position to close the hearing. And so therefore, I would seek a motion from the agency. And Mary Rose, maybe you could read the draft motion for us, given your expert guidance on the process here. You've done this for other applications. If you could please read the motion that's been drafted relative to continuing the hearing, that would be great.
three motions were proposed, one for additional information, which the applicant has already said they're going to provide. One was to just close the hearing so that we could deliberate, and the other was to leave the hearing open because we have a breadth of information that hasn't been submitted. We can't narrow it down to just one or two pieces at this time. So I would proposed a motion that the agency move that the hearing for IW 250036, 34 Buick Avenue remain open until we have an extension until 9/17/25.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Connors, Matthew Connors, and Ms. Valvo. Any other comments on the motion, Mary Rose, that you want to put on the record?
No, thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion on the motion? I would like to make a comment relative to this motion. I would just like to acknowledge I was thinking about the amount of time that the agency itself has invested in this application. I would like to make a mention of that, especially in light of a comment that was made earlier. By my calculation, we have 8 people here. We had about the same number of people in the last meeting. And so altogether, just in meetings alone, by my calculation, we've spent north of 70 hours that does not include the time that we spent offline reading materials. So I want to thank the commission for the substantial investment in time and commitment and patience through this process in your deliberation. And I'd be a fan of and support of this motion, continuing it and investing more time to follow the process. Any further discussion? Okay, Lisa, roll call vote.
Daniel Bedecker,
Aye.
Brian Black,
Aye.
Jim Connors,
Muted.
Jim, is Jim around?
Yeah, he's muted.
He's waving.
He's muted. He's
Giving
waving.
yay.
Okay. Matthew Connors,
Aye.
Nick Ritchie,
Aye.
Julie Valvo,
Aye.
Buddy Field,
Aye.
Ray Gradwell,
Aye.
Brendan Magnan.
Aye, the motion carries. Thank you, everyone. The meeting or the public hearing has been extended until 9/17. Thank you to the applicant team. Thank you to the public who has participated in this process, either tonight or watching on Zoom or YouTube. Thanks to the experts as well that testified. At this time, we're going to proceed with the regular agenda. Mary Rose, if you could please show the agenda. Is there anyone here wishing to speak to the agency on topics not otherwise on the agenda? That's item D, public comments. Okay, seeing none, moving on to old business. Like to report that IW 25041, that's 1 Bayshore Drive, map 29, block 558, parcel 5, 1 Bayshore LLC, for a proposed demolition and construction of a single family home within 100 feet of a wetland and watercourse in the south central shoreline watershed, was received on August 6th, and we do have a site walk scheduled for next week at 5:30 p.m. on September 10th. At this time, the agency can ask questions, request additional information. I'm sorry, at this time, I'd recommend that we take no action, given that we have that site walk scheduled.
I first that.
Great. Okay, moving on to consideration of the minutes from the previous meeting. Do we have a motion to approve those as presented by Lisa?
I'll propose that motion.
I second it.
We have a motion by Mr. Black and a second by Mr. Field. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, Lisa, roll call vote.
Daniel Bedecker,
Aye.
Brian Black,
Aye.
Jim Connors,
Aye.
Matt Connors,
Aye.
Nick Ritchie,
Aye.
Julie Valvo,
Aye.
Buddy Field,
Aye.
Ray Gradwell,
Aye.
Brendan Magnan.
Aye, the motion carries. Thank you. Mayor Rose, do you want to offer a staff report?
No, I had said it was in the link on your notes. It will be in your link on your notes. What didn't get there today. Just a reminder to put aside November 15th for the CACUIC annual meeting, 8:30 to 4. I think it's in New Britain. I'm not quite sure. And if you have any questions, to please get them to me individually, not in a group email. And remember that there's no discussion of public hearing information with the public, just in this meeting room.
Thank you, Mayor Rose. Any questions for Mayor Rose? Seeing none, moving on to Chair's report. Again, thank you everyone for your investment and time in this process. It's a very complicated application, and in general, appreciate your continued dedication to the team. Let's see. As a reminder, we do have that sidewalk next Wednesday. Don't forget, 5:30 p.m. Mayor Rose, can you let us know where we're supposed to park?
I will. My plan is to send you a reminder email, maybe a calendar invite, although it will not be Zoom, it's in person, with locations to park. It's a beach neighborhood. It's tight parking. Mr. Field is riding his bike, I believe.
Yes.
Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
You got it.
Thank you. Second?
I second it.
Roll call vote.
Dan Bedecker,
Aye.
Brian Black,
Aye.
Jim Connors,
Aye.
Matt Connors,
Aye.
Nick Ritchie,
Aye.
Julie Valvo,
Aye.
Buddy Field,
Aye.
Ray Gradwell,
Aye.
Brendan Magnan.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mayor Rose. Thank you, Lisa. Meeting is adjourned.
Take care. Have a good night.
Good night.
Thank you, everyone. Blessing, we're all done.